In a world where artificial intelligence can generate convincing voices, faces, and even experts, how do we, as journalists, PR professionals, and communicators, know who we can trust? And what can be done to make sure real expertise cuts through the noise of fake AI? That's exactly what we're here to discuss today. I'm delighted to be joined by three fantastic guests. Scott Darcy, Deputy Chief News Editor from the PA Newsroom, bringing us his editorial perspective. Kate Gardner, Senior Mediapoint Services Manager, who'll share how newsrooms and PR professionals alike can connect more effectively using our new Expert Hub services. And finally, Geraldine Cooper, Senior Media Lead at Crohn's and Colitis UK, who'll give us first-hand view of how these tools are already helping charities communicate with impact. Welcome to you all and thanks very much for joining us. So, Scott, a voice from the newsroom. What are some of the challenges you face day to day when it comes to AI and fake news?
Yeah, well, I mean, you're right. It's absolutely a huge challenge because, we as a news organization and also just the news industry in general want to be accurate about what we're reporting on. We don't want to be putting out stuff that's fake and generated AI or anything like that. So, it's become an acute challenge, I think, because AI's advancing. Newsrooms have to react to that and try and be vigilant to that kind of thing. At the same time, that's where experts can come in, where if you're a journalist researching a story and there's that sort of element of needing a sort of verification of it, then, getting an expert voice in there can help. Likewise, you need to make sure that those experts that you're using are genuine experts and are actually credible people in their field. So, you need to then do the basics of journalism to make sure that you check out who they are, their background, what their expertise really is, before you quote them in your story.
That must be a real challenge if in your newsroom you've got breaking news and speed is very important. And accuracy, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, breaking news wise, the aim is to get the news out as fast as you can. And for a news agency like ours, being first is incredibly important. But the caveat to that is that if you have an inkling that something might not be quite right, pause, think about it. Don't just rush it out because there's no point in being first and all.
And Kate, so Expert Hub, I think, addresses some of the topics that we're going to be discussing today, what Scott mentioned around, trusted sources. So why did Expert Hub appear and how does it work?
Our position as the UK news agency gives us a really key part in people's workflow and allows them to actually trust what we do. And we thought, well, actually, it's a really good opportunity for us to actually engage with the fantastic Mediapoint customers we've got, who we know have got loads of experts, and bring them to media audience. There's a desire for customers who want to get their voice in the news. They've got real experts with real opinions who struggle to find their way into the media. And so we thought, actually, this is something we need to look into.
Great. And knowing PA Media, whose fast, fair and accurate mantra is at the front of everything we do, surely they have to jump through quite a few hoops and loops. It's not just a matter of signing up to this thing. So describe to me the vetting process and the due diligence that you have to do.
Absolutely. So the thing that's really key about Expert Hub is that we've got a really robust vetting process. Every single expert that gets onto the database is vetted by a journalist, by a PA-trained journalist. So we verify who they are, the qualifications, their organisation, all the credentials. We look at past work, the portfolio. We have an on-call video call with them to actually make sure they are a person. We literally do everything possible that a journalist would do when they're looking at a story ahead of time. So we can actually say, we know this person is genuine, you've got the PA stamp of approval. And if there's any questions or red flags, then we don't let them onto the database.
Geraldine, you were one of the very early adopters when Expert Hub was in process. Just describe to us actually day to day, what are some of the challenges of your charity, Crohn's and Colitis?
So I was a journalist before I went to work at Crohn's and Colitis UK, and I think that's one of the things that I really missed is I sort of realised when I was a journalist that I used the wires all the time. I don't think I really appreciated quite how much I would miss them when they were gone. And so I arrived in that job thinking, okay, I know how to get cut through, I know how to jump on things. And obviously there's a big missing piece of the puzzle, which is that I can't see things before they're due to go out if we're not directly involved in them. And so we came and spoke to somebody about Mediapoint and signed up. And it's made a massive difference to us because obviously we can see now things that are obviously directly relating to us. So there might be some research that hasn't been done by us as a charity, but has perhaps been done by a university that we might not have otherwise seen unless the embargo had been lifted and it had made the news. And then we also see when you're living with a long-term condition like Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis, there are all sorts of repercussions in everyday life. So you might have issues around benefits or around the ability to work or around interacting with the NHS all the time. And we are able to now see those stories before they reach the public and think, what do we think about those? What would we like to say? And obviously can offer up some comment on that, which is being really great for us.
In light of the Margot Blanchard hoax, where fake bylines, unverifiable sources, and fabricated identities pass through editorial checks, how essential is it having verified experts in restoring and maintaining that trust in journalism?
I'd say it's crucial. It's embarrassing if you're a media title and you have to pull, some expert quotes on the whole article, for having a fake expert in there. It just erodes reputation and trust immediately. At PA, obviously, we base our reputation on the fact that we, are fast, we're fair, we're accurate, all that. That's why we are so hot on the vetting of the experts. It's the key cornerstone of Expert Hub for us. And the fact that it's such a time saver for journalists, because they know that any expert that we've got on our database, they don't have to do all that legwork themselves. I mean, obviously, as a journalist, we do recommend that you actually do look at the experts and what they're saying. But as far as we can, we have vetted that expert as a journalist would vet them. So, you can rely on the fact that they're actually going to be an expert in the field that they are.
To be clear, this appeared in the Press Gazette and actually got past the Guardian and the New York Post.
It's a real challenge, I think, for newsrooms who, are time poor, perhaps need to, take that bit of extra time just to work out who these people say they are. I mean, let's be honest. These people who do these kind of things go to extraordinary lengths to appear genuine and to fool the safeguards and checks. But, where I think Expert Hub is good at sort of building that trust is, like you say, it's verified by PAs, journalists, and you can, whether you believe what the expert is saying or agree with it, that they are an expert in their field and they are, someone who can have a credible opinion and bring something to your story that you might not otherwise have. That's where Expert Hub can come in, where you can trust it. And when you are time poor on a story and you're breaking news and you need to get something out quickly, you've got a contacts book or an extension of your contacts book right there and ready.
And obviously in PR and comms, AI probably very much appears in conversations about creativity, but obviously from a brand perspective and reputation, how important is it for you that the people that you're putting out there have that extra lens of scrutiny, if you like?
Yeah, absolutely. It's really important those people are well trusted and that they're able to speak in an expert way. We sometimes have the other thing, which is obviously that we receive the alerts when we get mentioned or when our conditions, that when somebody mentions Crohn's in the press or someone mentions colitis in the press, and sometimes you have that real feeling of, oh dear, we've missed this. Like I wish we'd been able to say something about this. And I think before I arrived, maybe it was seen as a little bit of a numbers game where I am kind of trying to make sure that we kind of rack up as many mentions as possible. I've really tried to hammer home that it's not always about that. It's about getting what you want to say out there. And sometimes we might miss an opportunity to be mentioned somewhere. But when you read the wider context of the article, you think, I am actually fine that they decided to quote somebody else, and maybe we don't want to be in this. And I think it's also about always making sure that you communicate your messages in a trustworthy way, and that the people that you have speaking on your behalf have the right to speak on your behalf with knowledge and are able to kind of back up the work that the huge part of our charity does, which is about being kind of expert reviewed and medically backed and making sure that we give correct information.
Recently, there was news that a multi-billion-pound investment coming over a number of years in the UK from Nvidia, Google and Microsoft in AI technology. I guess what we're discussing today is that we may be moving into an era where we need to be even more kind of protective. Do you think that news recently opens up some challenges for newsrooms, for example, over the next few years?
As investment in AI goes up and as generative AI improves, it will get harder and harder to tell when someone is manipulating an image or is generating an image of a major event. If something happens, I see people immediately ask Grok, is this true? Or ChatGPT, is this true? And the thing is that weirdly, Grok just searches what's on the news outlets and spits it back to them, sometimes with a twist. So, it's really hard for people to know what they can trust and what they can't trust. And that's where news organizations come in. They need to be the ones who are, who can be trusted.
It is a challenge, but that's what I think is good about what we do, is that we take a people centric approach. So even AI, even though it's everywhere now, people are always at the heart of what we do, and it always has a few pairs of eyes on something to make sure that it's genuine. And I think that's going to come at premium soon. Having that people in the business who actually make sure that everything is as it's supposed to be, and that nothing slips through. I mean, it is a challenge. But obviously, something that we are very passionate about at PA is that everything is, fact checked and accurate, and that's how it's always going to be.
You're right. Everything is human-led. And actually being human, sort of having a human at the heart of everything, is becoming a USP in a way. We can say at PA, the news that we put out there has gone through several humans to get to that point. And we're quoting people that we know are humans. And, the expert hub is vetted and trusted.
Human beings are front and center of all the case studies and the topics you want to discuss in your charity. So moving forward, what kind of watch points or what things may you be as a charity kind of preparing for to mitigate those risks?
Well, I think, as you said, human beings are the thing. Case studies or everything comes back to. We know that there's most of the inquiries we get ask us for information from medical professionals, for example. That's the kind of experts that people are really interested in, speaking on our behalf, but also the case studies. And I think we have to get out of our comfort zone a little bit, and that's quite a discussion that we're kind of having. It's difficult sometimes when you're going up against people with their dietary cures or their advice. We might not be ready to say definitively that something makes a difference or has kind of helped people with their symptoms, for example, but we have to be prepared to kind of take a little step in talking about the things that have traditionally maybe made us a little bit uncomfortable as an organization, because if we're not kind of meeting people where they are or taking some steps towards that, then what happens is you're just drowned out by all the noise. So I think that's been something that we've been working really hard on doing, trying to get answers on areas where previously we've just had to say, sorry, we don't have any evidence to back that up, I'm afraid. Those are the areas that we need to think about. So diet and lifestyle and things that people, frankly, when they get diagnosed with a life-changing condition, want to know, is there anything I can do? Is there anything I can do to make my day-to-day easier? Whilst there maybe isn't anything definitive we can say, there are sort of people who kind of anecdotally swap stories on our forums, for example, and kind of putting some of those out to the fore and carefully taking those tentative steps makes a bit of a difference.
So what is unique about Expert Hub?
So the unique selling point of Expert Hub is the fact that it runs next to the UK newswires, gives people access to experts, and also the experts are submitting their expert views in real time. So as the story's developing, as the story's being built, the expert views are there. So I mean, it's really good for journalists, and I'm sure Scott will back me up on this, that it's almost like the reactions come in real time. So, getting reaction for stories can be quite tricky sometimes from experts.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I have used expert views that they sort of pop into my newsfeed the way I see it, because I see everything. But and there have been occasions where you pick up a line from one of those views and you think, oh, that's quite interesting, we should have that in the story.
And also, of course, some stories they develop. So over a period of time, you may want to have several different perspectives.
Yeah, absolutely. On a fast-moving story, or let's take the budget, for example, right? So we'll get tons of financial action then, I'm sure. But, as you said, that it sort of develops and new things are coming out all the time. And throughout, by the end of the day, the story doesn't look like necessarily it looked like at the beginning of the day. So it helps to have those sort of real-time, rapid reactions that you can then either use to inform your questions if you're interviewing someone else, or to fold into your story, or even change the tone of your story if it is that significant. Yeah.
And something else as well is that Expert Views allows you to do is to submit your views a day or two after. So say, for example, if you've done some great research on something, maybe the news story's been a couple of days earlier, but you've got a really great new angle or thought on the story, you can submit that. And, journalists love reheating stories and moving it on and follow-ups. Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's the thing, is when you're kind of commenting the way that Mediapoint would initially work without the Expert Hub dimension, you can get a quote in. You can get a couple of lines in, maybe that whole quote's not going to make it through. It's probably going to be turned around a bit and a bit of it's going to be taken out to make it into the story. But being able to kind of comment more in depth and put across those points is really helpful and valuable from our side as well, because there are lots of opinions and kind of not nowhere for them to go. But I mean, it can be tricky, so it kind of cuts out the worry about how we're going to get them out there.
Yeah, that's right. And it lets you do like longer form pieces like, white papers, or if you've got a bit more research piece, not just a quote, you can put that through as well, which is, potentially helpful for future stories.
Yeah, I mean, the speed is of the essence of it. I mean, that's fine, right? If something happens, there's a lot of voices all wanted to get in there at the same time. Invariably, I know as a journalist, the first one in the door normally is the one that finds itself in the story. So, obviously, if you then come up with a much more belting quote, then we'll swap it out. But, speed is absolutely the essence for people reacting, for expert reactions. So, yeah, that's been valuable with it.
Well, thank you very much for all speaking today. Geraldine from Crows and Colitis, Scott from our newsroom, and Kate from our Mediapoint team. For anybody that wants to find out more about Mediapoint Expert Hub, then please click the link below.